Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to fix your problems, the deeper they seem to root themselves in your life? No matter how much you think about them, analyze them, or try to solve them, they never really go away. They just change form, shifting from one worry to the next, keeping you locked in an endless cycle of stress and seeking. But what if the solution isn't in trying to fix anything at all? What if the moment you stop engaging with the struggle, every problem you've ever had simply disappears? This is not philosophy. This is not an idea to believe in or a technique to practice. It is the most direct truth, a truth that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. The mystics of every tradition have spoken of it. Zen masters, Sufi poets, Advaita sages, Christian contemplatives, all pointing to the same thing. The moment you stop identifying with the mind's noise, the moment you surrender into deep stillness, all problems dissolve, not because they were solved, but because they were never real to begin with. The mind doesn't want to hear this. It thrives on problems, on conflict, on things to fix and things to chase. It wants goals, solutions, personal growth. It wants to become something greater than it is now. But who is the I that is seeking? Who is the one trying to change? The moment you ask this question with sincerity, something shifts. The illusion begins to crack. You start to see that the self you've been trying to improve, trying to free, trying to perfect, it was never real. It was only a construct, a mental story playing in the background of your awareness. Right now, if you stopped thinking, even for a second, what remains? Not words, not worries, just presence, just a deep, effortless stillness. It has always been here, waiting beneath the surface of every thought, every moment of seeking. But the mind, restless and fearful, distracts from it. It pulls you into an endless stream of ideas, convincing you that peace is somewhere in the future, always just out of reach. This is the great trick, the greatest illusion. Because right here in this moment, when all thinking stops, there is no problem. There is nothing to fix, nothing to become, nothing missing, just awareness itself. Just a presence so simple, so vast, that the mind doesn't know what to do with it. This is why stillness is feared, not because it is empty, but because it is so completely full. Because in stillness the ego vanishes. The personal self, the one who worries, the one who fights, the one who constantly looks for answers, disappears like a shadow in sunlight. And what remains is something the mind cannot grasp. Pure being, pure presence, beyond the need for anything. Somewhere inside, you already know this. You have felt it before, maybe in deep meditation, maybe in the quiet moments between thoughts, maybe when looking at the ocean or staring up at the stars. That feeling of peace, of weightlessness, of being completely here without effort. That is the truth of who you are. And it is always available. The only thing keeping you from it is the mind's insistence that you are someone separate, someone struggling, someone incomplete. This is why every spiritual path points to surrender, not as an act of giving up, but as the deepest recognition that there was never anything to fight in the first place. The river doesn't fight to reach the ocean. The wind doesn't struggle to move. Everything in nature flows effortlessly, without resistance. And your truth. Right now as you listen, something in you recognizes this. A stillness beneath the words, a silence between every sound. That silence is not empty, it is alive. It is the space from which all things arise. And when you surrender to it, even for a moment, the illusion of struggle disappears. Many people spend years, lifetimes even, trying to find this stillness through effort. They meditate, they seek, they practice endlessly, hoping to achieve enlightenment. But this is the greatest paradox. Enlightenment is not something to be achieved. It is what remains when all effort stops. It is the realization that you were never separate to begin. Imagine a wave on the ocean, searching desperately for water. It travels across the sea, rising and falling, looking for something it already is. This is the mind's search for peace. The mind thinks it must do something, become something in order to reach stillness. But stillness is not something to reach. It is what you are, underneath every thought, underneath every emotion, underneath every story you've ever told yourself about who you are. Close your eyes for a moment and listen, not to the words, but to the space beneath them. Feel the presence that is always here, always waiting. This is the stillness that ends all struggle. This is the truth that every seeker is looking for but cannot find, because it is not found in the future, it is found now. The moment you stop trying to control, to define, to grasp, you fall into it effortlessly. The moment you stop resisting life, life carries you. Like a leaf floating on the river, there is no effort required. Just trust, just surrender. And here's the part that changes everything. When you truly let go, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. Because the personal self, the ego, was only ever a limitation, a contraction, a small, fearful identity trying to hold on to control in a universe that is vast, infinite, and beyond comprehension. Stillness is not something you practice, it is something you remember, something that has never left you, something that has been waiting for you to notice it again, and when you do, every problem disappears. Not because the external world changes, but because you change. You stop identifying with the one who suffers, and instead, you become the silent witness of it all. There is no greater peace than this, no greater freedom than knowing that you are not your thoughts, not your worries, not the temporary roles you play. You are the space in which it all appears. The eternal awareness that watches the waves come and go, but is never affected by them. And the most beautiful part? You don't have to search for it. It's already here. It has always been here. You might be wondering, if stillness is so simple, why does it feel so difficult to reach? Why do problems seem so real, so persistent? Why does suffering feel unavoidable? The answer is not in the world around you. It's not in the circumstances of your life. It's in your identification with the one who suffers. It's in the way the mind attaches to everything, thoughts, emotions, identities, memories, building an entire world of struggle and then believing it's real. But is it? Right now, if you close your eyes and simply observe, you'll notice something extraordinary. Every thought that arises eventually disappears. Every emotion, no matter how strong, eventually fades. The only thing that remains, the only thing that has ever remained, is the awareness that is watching it all. This awareness has no problems, it has no past, it has no future, it is not bound by worries, desires, or fears. It is simply here, unshaken, untouched, and completely free. And this is the truth that the great sages, mystics, and enlightened beings throughout history have pointed to, not as an idea, not as a belief, but as the most direct, immediate experience of reality. You don't need to believe in stillness. You don't need to convince yourself that problems are illusions. You only need to see it for yourself. Watch your thoughts as they arise, without getting involved. Watch your emotions without trying to control them. Notice how everything comes and goes like waves in the ocean. And then ask yourself, who is watching? Who is the one observing all of this? The mind will try to answer. It will say, I am watching. But keep looking, keep questioning. Who is this I? Is it the body? Is it the personality? Is it the voice in your head? No, those things can all be observed, and whatever can be observed cannot be you. There is something deeper, something more real than any thought, any belief, any story. And when you rest in that awareness, even for a moment, all problems vanish. Because problems exist only in time, they exist only in the mind's projection of a past that no longer exists, or a future that has not yet come. But awareness? Awareness is always here, outside of time, beyond the reach of any struggle. And once you recognize this, everything changes. You stop running from discomfort, you stop seeking external solutions to internal suffering, you stop chasing after the next thing, hoping it will finally bring peace. Because you realize you are peace itself, not as an idea, not as a temporary state, but as the very essence of what you are. This is why great teachers like Ramana Maharshi, Meister Eckhart, and Lao Tzu never spoke about self-improvement. They never told you to become better, to fix yourself, to change who you are. Because the moment you try to change yourself, you are reinforcing the illusion that there is a separate you that needs fixing. But there is no separate self, there never was. There is only awareness, only presence, only the infinite stillness that has been here all along. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of a perfectly still lake. The surface is smooth, reflecting the sky, undisturbed by even the smallest ripple. Now, imagine throwing a stone into the water. The moment it enters, the surface distorts. Waves ripple outward, breaking the stillness, creating movement, creating form. This is what happens the moment the mind engages with thought. The stillness of awareness is disturbed. The illusion of a separate self arises. And suddenly, problems appear, conflict appears, the entire world of suffering is born. But here's the key. The stillness never left. It was never lost. It was only hidden beneath the ripples. And when the stone settles, when the movement fades, the lake returns to its natural state. This is what happens when you stop engaging with the mind's noise, when you no longer chase thoughts, no longer fight against emotions, no longer struggle to control life. The ripples fade, and all that remains is pure, effortless presence. Stillness is not something to create, it is something to return to, something that has never left, something that has only been covered by the movement of thought. And this is why silence is the greatest teacher. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the absence of resistance, the absence of effort, the absence of struggle. When you sit in true silence, without needing to do anything, without needing to think, you begin to notice the presence beneath everything. And in that presence, no problem can survive. Because problems are not real. They are only stories the mind tells. Stories that disappear the moment they are no longer believed. And here's the most incredible realization of all. This stillness is available to you at all times. Right now, not after years of meditation, not after mastering spiritual techniques, not in some distant future when you've finally figured everything out. It is here in this moment waiting for you to notice it. All you have to do is stop. Stop seeking. Stop trying to reach something outside of yourself. Stop believing that peace is anywhere other than right here, right now. This is the secret that the great mystics have always known. This is the truth hidden behind every teaching, every practice, every spiritual path. All roads lead here, to this stillness, to this presence, to this infinite, unshakable peace that has never left you. Close your eyes. Feel it now, not later, not when you have time, not when you think you are ready, now, because this moment, this breath, this silence, is all there ever is. And yet, despite how simple this truth is, the mind resists it. It will tell you that it can't be this easy, that there must be more to do, that stillness is something to be earned, something to practice, something that only happens after years of discipline. But this is the trick of the mind. It wants complexity. It wants effort. Because as long as there is effort, the illusion of the separate self remains. Stillness does not require time. It does not require understanding. It requires only one thing: your willingness to let go. But letting go does not mean forcing something away. It does not mean trying to get rid of thoughts, emotions, or sensations. Letting go is the simplest thing in the world. It means allowing everything to be exactly as it is, without needing to interfere, without needing to fix, without needing to resist. Because resistance is what creates suffering. It's not the situation itself. It's not the thoughts or the emotions. It's the belief that things should be different than they are. It's the clinging, the grasping, the trying to control. But the moment you stop resisting, the moment you allow everything to be exactly as it is, you fall effortlessly into stillness. Because stillness has never been separate from you. It is the foundation of everything, the backdrop of existence itself. Think of a vast sky. Thoughts, emotions, and life circumstances are like passing clouds, always shifting, always changing, never staying in one place. But the sky itself, it is untouched. It does not cling to the clouds, nor does it try to push them away. It simply allows them to come and go. And this is what true stillness is. It is not about stopping thoughts. It is about recognizing that you are the sky, not the clouds. You are the space in which all experiences arise, but you are not bound by them. Once this is seen, suffering dissolves, not because life stops being life, not because challenges disappear, but because you stop identifying with the one who struggles. You may ask, if I surrender completely, if I stop trying to fix, control, or improve my life, won't I become passive? Won't I lose all motivation? Won't I stop caring? And here is the beautiful paradox. When you stop grasping at life, life moves through you effortlessly. When you stop trying to control everything, a deeper intelligence takes over. The same intelligence that makes the seasons change, that makes the planets move, that allows a tree to grow without ever needing to be taught how. This intelligence is always present. It is what breathes you. It is what makes your heart beat. It is what guides the birds in migration, what turns an acorn into an oak tree, what orchestrates the entire cosmos without effort. And when you surrender to stillness, you do not become passive, you become aligned. Your actions arise naturally without conflict. Your choices become clear without struggle. You move with life rather than against it. And in this movement there is peace. This is why the greatest sages and mystics do not speak of trying to fix life. They speak of aligning with it, flowing with it, trusting it. Because when you trust, when you surrender, you no longer live from the limited mind. You live from something far greater. Imagine trying to swim upstream against a powerful current. You fight, you struggle, you exhaust yourself trying to go against the natural flow of the river. And yet, no matter how hard you try, the current is stronger. But the moment you let go, the moment you stop resisting, the river carries you effortlessly. No more struggle, no more exhaustion, just the flow of life itself. And this is what happens when you surrender into stillness. Problems disappear, not because they are solved, but because they lose their hold on you. The mind may try to pull you back into its stories, but you see through them now. You recognize that they are just passing thoughts, ripples on the surface of something infinitely vast. And so you remain as you are, silent, still, completely free. This freedom is not something that can be given to you. It is not something you must earn. It is already yours. It always has been. Close your eyes again. Listen. Not to your thoughts, not to the voice in your head, but to the silence underneath. Feel the space between your breaths. Notice the stillness that is already here, waiting for you to recognize it. This is your true nature. It is not something to achieve, it is not something to become, it is something to remember. And once you remember, once you truly see that this stillness is who you are, everything changes. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, not because challenges never arise again, but because you now see life for what it is, an endless unfolding, a play of form and movement appearing within the vast, silent presence that you have always been. The search ends here, not because you found what you were looking for, but because you realized you were never lost. And now something profound happens. You stop searching, you stop grasping, you stop trying to figure it all out, because suddenly you see there was never anything to find. There was never a moment when you were separate from the stillness. There was never a point in time when you were lost. It was only the mind, spinning its stories, layering thoughts upon thoughts, that made you believe otherwise. And when those thoughts are no longer fed, no longer entertained, what remains? Just this, just now. A presence so simple, so vast, that words cannot touch it. And yet, it is more real than anything you've ever known. For the first time you understand what the great mystics meant when they said, enlightenment is not something to be achieved, it is something to be recognized. It is not something that happens in the future, it is something that is already here, waiting for you to notice. And now you do. But here's the paradox. The moment you see it, the mind wants to hold on to it. It wants to make it an experience, a memory, something it can own. It wants to claim it, to say, I have reached stillness, I have attained peace. But the moment the mind grasps, it loses it, because stillness is not something you own, it is something you are. So you let go, again and again. You allow this moment to be exactly as it is. No clinging, no resistance. Just pure, effortless being. And in this space, everything slows down. You begin to notice the details of life in a way you never have before. The sound of the wind through the trees, the gentle rhythm of your own breath, the warmth of the sun on your skin. You see life not as something distant, something happening to you, but as something intimate, something inseparable from what you are. This is the awakening that no one talks about. Not an explosion of light, not a dramatic event, but a quiet, gentle dissolving of everything you thought you were. A return to the simplicity of existence itself. And with this recognition comes the greatest freedom of all. The freedom from needing life to be any different than it is. The freedom from struggle. The freedom from effort. For so long the mind has told you that peace is on the other side of change. That once you fix your problems, once you find the right path, once you achieve something great, then you will finally be at peace. But now you see, the peace you were chasing was never in the future. It was always here, underneath everything. It was only waiting for you to stop running. And now you are still, now you are home. But what happens next? How do you live from this space? How do you walk in the world while carrying this stillness? The truth is, nothing changes, and yet everything changes. You still wake up in the morning, you still go about your day, you still interact with people, do your work, live your life. But something is different. The weight is gone. The tension is gone. The need to control, to grasp, to resist, gone. You move through life as the ocean moves, effortlessly, without resistance. You speak, but there is no grasping in your words. You act, but there is no tension in your actions. You face challenges, but they no longer pull you into suffering, because you no longer take them personally. You no longer believe the mind's story that says you are separate, small, or incomplete. And so you begin to live in a way that is completely natural, completely in harmony with existence itself. There is no longer a battle between you and life, because you are life. And this is where true intelligence arises, not the intelligence of thought, but the intelligence of being. The same intelligence that moves the planets, that grows the trees, that beats your heart without you needing to think about it. You no longer rely on the mind to guide you. You move from something deeper, something wordless, something timeless. And life, once so full of struggle, becomes effortless. Not because the world changes, but because you have changed. Not in the way the mind imagined, not by adding anything, but by removing everything that was never real. So now, as you sit here, as you listen, as you breathe, recognize this truth, not as a concept, not as a belief, but as something that is already happening. There is nothing you need to do, there is nothing you need to become. Stillness is here, it has always been here, and the moment you stop searching, the moment you stop trying, the moment you simply allow this moment to be exactly as it is, you realize every problem has already disappeared, because they were never real to begin with. There is a moment in every seeker's journey when they realize there was never anything to seek. The peace they longed for was never hidden. The freedom they chased was never somewhere far away. It was here, all along, waiting in the background of every experience, patiently, silently, untouched by time. And now you see it. You see that every problem was just a passing thought. Every struggle was just a ripple in the vast ocean of awareness. Every moment of resistance was simply the mind trying to grasp what was always beyond its reach. And when that grasping stops, when there is no more resistance, what remains? Just this, just the silent presence that has always been here, the effortless stillness that was never lost, only forgotten. And now something beautiful happens. Life does not become perfect. Challenges do not disappear. But suffering loses its grip. Because suffering was never in the situation itself. It was in the mind's interpretation, it was in the attachment, in the need to control, in the belief that things should be different than they are. But now you know. Nothing needs to change, nothing needs to be fixed. Life is as it is, and in its raw, unfiltered presence, there is nothing but peace. And so, you walk through the world in a new way. You no longer chase happiness because you realize happiness is not something to attain, it is something you are. You no longer resist pain because you understand pain is just another movement of life, another cloud passing through the sky of awareness. You no longer fear loss because you see that nothing real can ever be lost. You are free, not because you escaped anything, but because you finally stopped running. And here in this stillness you discover something even greater than peace. You discover love. Not the love that comes and goes, not the love that depends on conditions, but the love that simply is. The love that is woven into the fabric of existence itself. The love that has no opposite, because it is the foundation of all things. This is the love the mystics spoke of. The love that is not between two people, but the love that sees no separation at all. The love that looks out at the world and recognizes itself in everything, in every tree, every star, every stranger's eyes. The love that does not seek, does not cling, does not fear, because it knows there is only one, there has only ever been one. And so there is no longer anything to worry about, no longer anything to protect, no longer anything to defend. You are held by something infinite, something unshakable, and because of that you can finally let go. Let go of the need to prove yourself. Let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the need to hold on to anything at all. Because nothing is separate from you. Nothing was ever missing. Stillness is not something you practice. It is something you are. And now you see it clearly. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your past, your story, your name. You are the space in which it all arises. The awareness that watches it all come and go. And in that realization, every last problem vanishes. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Not by becoming something new, but by remembering who you've been all along. Stillness, presence, peace, home,